we often have talk on this, like we're two average runners. And because of that, we're like, we have goals, but I think we appreciate like greatness and people
Yeah.
who do the work. So often what we're doing as runners, we're just putting in the work. Famously, by the way, the San Antonio Spurs' motto is to pound the rock. And it's this idea that with a hammer and the rock, you have to like hit it like 1,000 times. And for 999 like knocks on the rock, nothing happens. It's like on like that, but there's that you got to keep doing it. And then one time that is the one that the rock breaks and you have the
Yeah.
impact.
I
And I
like
think
it.
this is a great analogy for running. Like, how many runs do we go on and like it feels like nothing happens and nothing much
Well,
gets
don't tell
better?
me it's 999 marathons for me before I go sub 3.
I'm
So
going to say
let's not
not
have that
not the
analogy.
marathons, but I would say it is the
The
999
runs, of
runs.
course.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's like
Yeah, yeah, sure.
3 to 4 years of running if you're
Yeah.
running 6 days a week, I think, or something like that.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Two Average Runners. It's me, Alice, with a very croaky voice, and my friend, Hugh. Hi, Hugh.
Hi,
How are you doing
everyone.
today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you? You've got the flu.
I've got the flu, and I'm dressed not in any running sort of attire because I've just
I
come back
know.
from a long workshop. So I was in a small room all day with this husky, croaky voice, coughing and spluttering. So I'm quite sure the clients were thinking, okay, we're all going home with some kind of dreaded disease. But being English, we kept it, no one spoke about the elephant in the room, and we all got
Yeah.
on. But I didn't feel good when I saw the size of the room and I arrived today and thought, God, I'm spending, 8 hours with these people in an enclosed space while I'm contagious.
Well, it's
Not
kind of
great.
funny. We mentioned last week, I think we referenced the flu game and Michael Jordan, who
Yes.
infamously played through the flu. And so Alice is doing her very own version of a flu game today. We message back and forth, and it's like sometimes, could we
You just get
shuffle?
sick.
And it's like
No.
sometimes the show's got to go on. This is probably going to be
Show
short
go
and sweet.
on.
The
Show
show will
goes
go
on.
on. Like we got a deadline to hit. Like the podcast got to go out on Tuesday.
Well,
Which side
I'm
note, by the
thinking,
way, I'm all for people being informal on podcasts, but I do when a podcast I'm used to doesn't then ship on the day of the week that I expect,
it's
it kind of
rude.
annoys me.
Very rude.
It's
Yeah,
rude.
if I'm getting onto my
So
sort of Zwift session and then there isn't the one I'm expecting, then I think, well, what am I supposed to watch? I didn't have any warning. What am I supposed to do with myself?
yeah,
Well, actually, I'm taking the positive out of it. We're calling this my radio voice. I've got my radio voice
okay,
today, my kind of deep voice. So excuse me if there's any sniffing or coughing. So let's jump in.
yeah,
How have you been on your training and life side of things? I know last week was a bit of a tough one for both of us, but how
yeah.
have you been?
Things have it's been a good week comparison to that.
Hmm.
Put things in last week. We talked a lot about how running can take over and can be a crutch and can be used as a distraction. It's as with all things. I love the phrase "never let a crisis go to waste."
Okay,
And
yes.
so it's been, made some good changes based on last week. It's caused some good reflections. Things have been coming together as a result. Like, life is still life. But it's interesting. I thought it was another thing. The city of San Antonio is pretty excited right now. Let's put it like that. So last week, or like rather over the weekend, San Antonio Spurs won Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. This is NBA, that's National Basketball Association. San Antonio has an NBA team called the San Antonio Spurs. Very
Okay.
different
Never
to
heard of
Tottenham.
them. Never heard of them.
Yep.
But anyway.
Spurs being the Spurs on your cowboy boots. Not to be confused with Tottenham Hotspur for
Yep.
our British
Our UK visitors.
listeners, listeners, visitors, watchers, YouTubers. And it's like the only, team in the city. We don't have an NFL team or a Major League
Okay.
Baseball team or a hockey team. And it's a storied franchise. They've won probably 5 NBA finals over the past couple of decades, 2 or 3 decades. So like pretty storied, but haven't won for many years and haven't been in the playoffs for many years. They've gone through a period of rebuilding. So anyway, the city is pumped. We have a star player called Victor Wembanyama, who is like this French phenom. He's 7'4" on paper.
No
People think he's
ways.
7'6". He
You're
towers
joking.
over other basketball players. And look, height is not just height. There have been plenty of tall
That's
players in the
crazy.
NBA. He can move. They nickname him the alien. I'm wearing my Spurs shirt. That's why his icon is an alien, because he's like an alien that he can perform like this.
Okay.
And then
I
there's
need to get a
Fox,
photo of this
Castle, and
man.
Harp. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. So anyway, it's a funny story. I actually was lucky enough to go to Game 6, which was the last home game of the series, which was a must-win for San Antonio and I got to go to that game, which was pretty awesome.
Awesome.
And this is crazy. It's a friend's tickets. They're really good season tickets. I wasn't expecting to go to the game. He had someone fall through last minute. I got to go.
Nice.
You won't believe this. I'm sitting next to Victor Wembanyama's dad. So his dad is literally, and his dad's like 6 foot
How tall
something as
is
well.
this man?
I mean, he's
Okay,
like six
also
foot
tall.
six or something like that. He's not
Okay.
7 foot, but he's still tall. But his son is on the pitch, on the court, getting like,
So
and
cool.
the only way they can play Wemby is to manhandle him. They have to play very physical because he's still so scrawny. He's like 7 foot, and he's like, still skin and bones, even though he's like
So he's a
trained
target
super
on the
hard.
court.
So he's a target, and that's the way they have to target him because he can just do such amazing things with his height and reach. He won Defensive Player of the Year because he can just reach and swat the ball.
It's
And
madness.
anyway, San Antonio is very excited. There's good vibes. Tonight is now it's the finals start tonight. San Antonio is playing the New York Knicks, so it's a real us versus them. Those Yankees.
Okay.
There's rumors that quite a lot of New York Knicks fans have come down to San Antonio and overpaid to fill our stadium because the difference is some of the tickets, like the nosebleed tickets in San Antonio, are like something like I think like $1,000 right now, which is kind of crazy to
You're
be the highest
joking.
seat. In New York for Game 3 next week, because when it plays 2 games here, then goes to New
Yeah,
York,
yeah.
it's $5,000 for the nosebleeds.
Is that the front row seats?
No, that's the worst.
That's the worst seats.
Oh yeah,
You're
yeah.
joking.
So like in New York, there are tickets going that aren't even courtside, the main courtside, going
That's
for
what I
like
thought.
80,
When you said
88.
nosebleed, I
Oh
thought you
no,
meant at the back,
nosebleed
and
is
then I thought
high than the back.
5,000. It can't be.
Oh no, that's the cheapest seat in the house.
No, that's
in New York.
crazy.
There are tickets going there for $88,000 one ticket.
No, that's
New
madness.
York's crazy too much. But anyway, so the rumor is a bunch of New Yorkers that come down here to San Antonio. So like there was a whole funny thing of like, say no, don't sell your tickets to the New Yorkers. Don't let them fill our stadium. Anyway, so that's a vibe. We often have talk on this, like we're two average runners, and because of that, we have goals, but I think we appreciate like greatness and people who do the work. So often what we're doing as runners, we're just putting in the work. Famously, by the way, the San Antonio Spurs' motto is to pound the rock. And it's this idea that with a hammer and the rock, you have to like hit it like 1,000 times. And for 999 like knocks on the rock, nothing happens. It's like on like that, but there's that you got to keep doing it, and then one time that is the one that the rock breaks and you have the impact. And I think this is a great analogy for running. Like how many runs do we go on and like it feels like nothing happens and nothing much gets
don't
better.
tell me it's 999 marathons for me before I go sub 3.
I'm going to say not the marathons, but I would say it is the 999 runs.
Of course.
I think that's like
sure.
3 to 4 years of running if you're running 6 days a week, I think, or something like that. Maybe. But anyway, so that's on my mind. So family a bit better. We've been making some change. I've been making some changes, and then I have been getting back to some running because I think I said I was a little inconsistent. Obviously,
you also had to stop. Well, you decided to stop 75 hard.
I did
2 days early. Are you going back into it, or you decided that would be foolish?
Given some new
I'm not
changes,
showing my bias at all.
No, exactly. It is a little foolish. Let's stay tuned on that one. Stay tuned.
Okay. You tell us. You tell us.
But I think one of the things that I did was realizing one of the bits that was sort of I'm trying to like not prioritize the running above everything, obviously, but noticing where there are some gaps. Like, hey, sometimes like I went to a yoga session the other day, and that was neat. I hadn't been to one of those and actually had time to sort of reflect and meditate. And I guess my biggest shift is like I decided no more for me. For this phase, no more podcasts while running. So
no more listening to podcasts.
No more listening to podcasts while I'm running.
Okay,
just
I got it.
Because it was that combination of like I'm getting out for a run, I'm able to distract with a podcast, and like at least if I go out for a run, like a run is an awesome time for us to reflect. And I reflect a lot, so like take advantage, be more intentional with the running, and then so that's kind of that's where the week is going. Shuffling things around a bit, but got a 12-mile run in this. Sorry. I didn't get 12 miles in. I got like just shy of 11 miles in this morning. I had a window to do a longer run, and then I'm not going to have much for the next few days, and then I'm going to try to get a longer run in on Sunday.
Good. Well, you sound a bit more chipper and chipping away, which is good.
Chipping away. How about you, Alice?
For me, where should I start? So last week, I didn't have the best week in the personal life, and I will say, without going into too much detail, that we've probably hit an all-time low, had the most horrific I don't want to, let's just use the word horrific. We had a very, very bad situation in our home on the weekend. I won't go further than that. Very serious. And so that has meant that there's a lot of knock-on effects and there's a lot going on. So that's the one side of things. At the same time, I mean, I don't want to trivialize that side of things, but on Saturday I woke up and I was supposed to do this park run into interval
Yes.
session. And on Friday I had a bit of a sore throat. Saturday I woke up, I was like, I'm really not feeling great.
Mm.
I'm not going to go and do it. And I had a whole lot of discussions with myself that I don't know if this is a South African word, wussing out. I'm like, I'm chickening out. I'm just
Yes.
being soft because I don't want to do this bloody thing because I'm going to feel like I'm going to fail. So I went through this whole debate with myself. Are you just being soft or being used? Or are you being weakless? Are you being useless or weak? What is it? I was like, no, I think I'm not feeling great. This is not a good day to push. So I'll take the day off. And if I feel better tomorrow, I'll do it. Now, this was before this big drama that we had on Saturday night. What then happened is that I probably slept 90 minutes to 2 hours at best on Saturday night.
Brutal.
Um,
Brutal.
and I woke up, but I mean, had basically been awake and decided I was feeling better, but I wasn't going to do the really intense session because even me, although I'm very bad at making good choices, thought I'll probably get injured if I go and hammer out this crazy 5K into marathon pace. I haven't slept, and I'm at this stage telling myself the sore throat and the tight chest is bad hay fever. So I'm going to just take a lot of antihistamines, but I'm going to go and do a nice long run.
Oh,
So anyway, I head
great.
out on a long run, got my gels, got going. I ran quite well, sort of a 4:44 minutes, 40 seconds pace on average, but I started close to 5 and picked up more to 4:30 and I ran just over 30 Ks.
Nice.
It was quite hot and humid, but I was
Yes.
kind of feeling like my chest is really tight and so anyway, I finished that run and I was feeling quite wrecked. At about 25 Ks, I was thinking, gosh, I'm actually a little bit more wrecked than I would usually be for this. I've obviously got a bit of work to do on my fitness. Finished the run, came home, dealt with some of the aftermath that had been going on here. But by that night, I was like, no, I've got a temperature, my glands are up in my neck. This hay fever was not hay fever. And by Sunday night, it was just like in bad way. Yesterday, today, and it just seemed to be sort of getting worse. So I have not run since Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
which is virtually unheard of for me.
Yeah. I
So
was gonna
maybe we
say.
chat in a moment about what are
Yeah.
your kind of, because I am the worst person for making sensible decisions, and I think many runners are not good at it. So maybe we can chat about that after the check-in. Like, and what do we think? What are our guidelines? And I have some thoughts around that. But I'm glad I haven't tried to run since. And also, my coach had set me quite a hellish week of training. I did think this week is another week called my coach is trying to kill me. So I haven't run, but I did go and see the sports specialist yesterday.
Hmm?
And he feels that the symptoms are probably not a stress fracture, but he does think that I'm somebody who's probably got RED-S, the relative energy deficiency
Mm-hmm.
syndrome. And we had a bit of a chat about that. And we spoke a little bit about some biomechanical stuff. But he said, I think because you are at risk, we need to scan anyway. So I went straight into having a scan. MRI scan, how much do you think it costs here in the UK, Hugh? Because I decided to pay privately and not fight with my insurance because they're a nightmare. How much do you think an MRI could cost?
£300. £300.
Double, £750
600,
it cost me.
£750. Wow.
£750. Okay.
That's punchy. That was,
That wasn't
yeah.
it wasn't an expense I was expecting. But I was like, we're in the middle. I went there. We were in the middle of a tube strike, thunderstorms. I'm like, I'm not coming back. Let's just do the scan. So I'm like, okay, deal with
Cool.
it
When did you get
later.
the results?
Friday, he's phoning me at midday. So
Okay.
that's good. Then at least I know and it's over with. And then it'll be interesting to talk about what comes back. And because I said to him, lots of scans come back with minor stress responses. What will we do if that's the case? He said, we need to look at the clinical picture. We need to then sort of figure out. One good thing he did say is the fibula, the bone that I've been struggling with, which is the outer bone, the outer part of your leg, the sort of smaller bone that goes to the outer part of your ankle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-weight bearing bone. So it's quite like
Yeah.
what they call low risk in terms of long-term complications. So anyway, that's that on my week, and therefore training, haven't really run apart from this nice run on Sunday.
Well, I want to say two things. One, I love that you called the audible and been the park run. It's like, look, we're average runners. Even if we're pro runners, like we got to listen to the body at times. I love
And
the,
actually, the pro runners don't run.
yeah, they really don't.
When they say,
Yeah.
I mean, did I tell you that I saw Lucy Charles Barkley, the triathlete? They have a rule when she hasn't slept enough, she doesn't do her run. They change her run, or because she only really gets injured in the running component of her training. And she's
Mm,
like a world champion triathlete.
yes.
And they actually bin her run, or they cut it short if she hasn't
Hmm.
slept or there's stress.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and the stress is like so. First, you, I just want to say kudos to you for making the call. Obviously, you had to go 12 rounds with yourself in
Yeah.
negotiation and like wussing out and not. But I love that you made the call. I love the Sunday also, particularly after that horrific. This is the thing I was about to say. Like, you have a rough time at home. How does it impact your running? Which you obviously
Yeah.
shared, like it can be, it's like, but then how can running be the thing that helps you? Like, that's the thing. Like, you went out and you had a long run, just like took off all the constraints and all the workouts and just got out there and just,
Yeah,
there's a
I
reason
enjoyed it.
we like running. We love
Yeah,
running.
I
Like, running
actually
is
felt
a,
I needed to. I felt I
Mhm.
just need to go and just relax into it, push myself a little bit, but my heart rate was in really good place. Just only at the end it picked up a bit, which I thought was all right.
Mhm.
Um, and just like not screw everybody else, but just go out there and have a great run.
And isn't that great?
I
It's
just
like
needed it.
I had one on Sunday where I'd had a run on Saturday. I spent all day with Henry and we'd gone to the museum. There's like a new dinosaur exhibit, and then we'd gone and we played Lego. He's into Star Wars and Legos. We played Star Wars Legos all day, and then we watched the Spurs game 7 that night. And on Sunday, I then had a window and I could go do a longer run. And again, similarly, I didn't have it. I didn't have it in me. I hadn't done a hill repeats workout, a hill sprints workout. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do like a really long run. But I was like, I'm going to go out there for like, 1.5 to 2 hours. And
Yeah.
I was like, what do I really want to do? And I was like, wait a second. It's like, okay, let's just forget about like absolute number of miles. I want to get out there for that kind of time. Like, I don't want to just be an hour, but like, it doesn't have to be like over 2 hours and consuming everything. And I was like, if I just go and run from here, I'm going to look at my watch. I'm going to note my pace. I was like, I'm going to go to my go-to place, Friedrich. But that Friedrich, it's a 6 mile. If you do the outer loop, it's 6 miles. And there's I know how long it takes to do the outer loop clockwise or counterclockwise, right? So, but there are some zigzagging trails, and so you know what? I'm gonna do a follow your nose run. So I just went, and every intersection, I just took a random turn, right? Because
Nice.
I know it well enough to not get lost,
Yeah.
and I just ran. And so also sometimes it's like, oh, if you want to do like several miles, you have to like if you want to do like, oh, I got to do one loop, two loops, or whatever it is to get 12 miles in. So I just did that, and I just ran, and I think it came out as something like maybe 9 miles, but it doesn't matter. It was like, just an hour and 45, but it was like the time sort of flew. I lost track of time. I didn't look at pace. I was just out there. It was a nice day. It was shaded, even though it was warm here. And, it was like sometimes that's the best of running where like it really
Yeah.
did feel like running was what
And
was neat, was the salve and was the
exactly. And
therapy
for
in
me,
that moment.
because for me, this is not my origin family. I'm the step parent, and it's, kind of the fairy tale. What's the sort of the tale as old as time is sort of the wicked stepmother. So,
Yes.
that's fine. I deal with that. But I kind of went on this run like, because usually I'm hustling to get back, to walk the dog, to sort this out. The next thing I thought, I'm going to go, I'm going to do at least 30 Ks or 2.5 hours, but over 2 hours, I'm just going to go. And I just decided I'm not going out and back. I'm finishing in Battersea. So I finished in Battersea.
Yeah.
And then I went to the power station. I went to MS to get like an orange juice and a protein milk.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was absolutely knackered in the water. And I found a bench and just sat on the bench. And I looked probably pretty tired. And I was just sitting there. And some guy next to me was like, "Hey, good session." And then started talking to him and his friend. And probably this is a good lead into Global Running
Yeah.
Day, because we spent half an hour just talking about running, the different events we done, what they were working
Amazing.
on. They were actually now working on their cycling. We just had a very cool chat, two random guys that I would never normally talk to. And we sort of sat in the sun, and then I just sat there quietly for another 10, 15 minutes, and eventually thought I must pull myself towards myself and get home. I actually nearly got a taxi home, which from Battersea to Hampstead would be
Would
rather
be
pricey.
punchy.
And I
Yeah.
thought, no, you cannot be that lazy. You really need to get yourself onto. You can do it. You can
You
get
could
on
do
the
the
tube, and I
tube. You
was
could do the
fine.
tube. You could do this.
But I came back when it suited me, which I never really do, and I just needed that time. I was like,
Love it.
okay, here, let's go. So I have paid the price that I'm feeling worse for wear illness wise. So on that note, what helps you decide whether you're going to run or not? And then I'll share mine. And just a disclaimer to everybody, yes, I am a doctor, but we are not giving advice. It's because we all know
Yes.
runners are not very good at taking advice anyway. So let's just share what we what works for us or doesn't
Yes,
work.
exactly. So, my general rule is that when it comes to being, quote, sick, this is for all the parents out there, particularly parents who have young kids. If you didn't run every time you had a sniffle or a cough or a little
You would never
something,
run.
you'd never run, because there's a period in the winter where like it's just one after the other. It's like a new variation. So there's an element there. So generally, I will run through most things there. I
Mhm.
think for me, it's like when it gets into the chest, or if it's like a really rough sore throat, those are kind of the ones that are like the stuffy nose, the little sort of like the sort of coughy, but not like just kind of annoying, but not like, but it's like for me, it's like once it starts to really get, and then either like the cold can makes it worse if it's cold weather, or sometimes like, so that's my general rule of thumb to start with. How about you?
I am someone who's notoriously, and I don't say that this is a good thing, but I normally just try and ignore being sick at all
Yeah,
costs. I think we're probably in that generation where our
yeah,
parents, would like, you'd have to have your head falling off if you were not going to go to school.
totally.
And I've got a doctor father. And I think even just being in medicine, if you ever tried to take a sick day as a doctor, it was like, no, that's just not how it works. Like
Hmm.
you can't. And once I did try to
Which
take a
is
sick day,
hilarious, by the way, because you are tending to patients and you might get them more sick, even if
I
you are.
know, but
It's
then
like,
the patients make a comment. I think once I was sick, and then never let you live it down. They'll say, "Oh, I can't believe you're sick and you're a doctor," and you're like, "Yeah, I've actually got people like you guys coughing on me all day, every
yeah, of
day."
course
At
I'm
some
sick.
stage,
I'm
I mean,
exposed to
actually, in
way
South
more.
Africa, lots of my friends got tuberculosis. I just didn't get close enough to the patients to get it. But actually, you do get sick. Okay, actual
Yeah, for
TB.
sure.
So
Holy
anyway, so
shit.
that's the kind of background of my sort of mentality. And I like to, if I feel anything coming on, I just go into denial, like I am not getting sick. But
I have
this
hay
time,
fever, like for the
yeah,
TV
like I'm
audience.
I'm
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
like,
refuse to get sick. So for me, if I've got like serious aches and pains, like your legs are sore, your back is sore, serious headache, so
mm,
almost like a fever
yeah.
thing, then I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
I'm not.
fever.
If it's
Yeah,
like a
that's,
whole body thing, which
yeah.
is what I've got now, it's like everything is sore. Sniffle, a nose, a bit of a cough, no. But if you are really like deep, you've got a temperature, the glands are really up, like you're struggling, like if you're short of breath coming up and down the stairs, that kind of thing. Like I walked the dog this morning and I nearly passed out. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that wouldn't have been a good idea to try and run. But the other thing that I do look at is resting heart rate. So I'll
Yes.
tell you that mine overnight, because we all have got these blimmin' devices, mine is often like between 38 and 39 beats a minute. And
So
now the
fit.
last few nights, mine is 46 or 47,
Yeah.
which might be fine for some people, but for me, that's like quite
Yeah,
a
and
lot
remember all
higher.
these things for people like there were some elite level marathoners with resting heart rates in the
Yeah,
60s. Like everyone's
yeah.
resting heart rate.
Everyone's
There's a lot of,
different,
but I
but
think
it's the difference.
but the difference. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the same. I know if for me when I get sick, it's like it's often 5 beats higher than and
yeah,
usually my normal range is pretty narrow.
yeah.
Whereas HRV can vary a lot more, and I don't think that's
With
always the
stress and
good
other
signal with
things.
stress, with sleep, with different things. So I also think the resting heart.
Yeah, so I thought and my coach had said to me, just keep an eye on your resting heart rate because if it is higher than normal, don't run. Because my coach is a bit, she's a bit like most crazy runners. She's a bit of a let's push through.
The
Let's
other
see
thing
if we
I would
actually
say,
die
yeah, exactly.
first.
The other thing that, as a rule of thumb, that I do is that if I am sick, I I take out intensity. So it's like
Yeah,
if I
that's
do
another
think that
one.
it's not because I sort of feel I don't know if he was not a doctor. This may not be scientific. Is I get the sense that like if I go hard, I'm just gonna flush everything around the body. Like anything is sort of is that how that feels to me and sort of makes things like a lot puts me in a hole sometimes. Whereas
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it's like okay, I can go out there, I can just run easy, I can just do like a an
Exactly. Yes. I
hour,
think if
easy hour.
you got a cold or whatever, then a bit of a cold, an easy run. Don't go and like beast yourself. That might not be the day
That
for
would not be the
completely
day.
killing it. No. So
But
yeah.
that's kind of cool. It's a good question. Good one to share.
What else was I going to share? I think I wanted to reflect. Yeah, I think linked in with that was a little bit around some of the discussion last week about how running is like can be a sort of something to lean on,
Mm-hmm.
a coping mechanism. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Sunday was a good example of that. And so and I think for me, I'm like in a bit of I don't use the word vulnerable, but in a difficult position that I'm now waiting to hear if I've got a stress fracture. I'm dealing with quite a serious personal position
Yeah.
at home. I'm also not feeling well. If running gets taken from me, the kind of panic and anxiety that comes on. And actually, I was talking to the sports doctor about this, and he was sort of talking to me about this kind of a mindset is often what we see with people with red S. He's spoken to me about what's stopping you from
Mm,
really getting much more nutrition in. Are you not thinking to yourself that the fear of getting injured is going to make me, even want to eat even more? And
mm,
you're like, yes, I'm
mm.
trying that, but this is already me pushing the boat out. So I think what I'm trying to get at, there's something around, and because I'm not well, I'm probably not making as much as succinct as I could be. There's something around a mindset of, I need the running. The running is what helps me cope. Without it, I think I know I don't have the best other coping mechanisms in place.
Yeah.
So now I'm sick and I can't run. Or on Sunday, I was like, even if I am a bit sick, I'm going to run, and I'm going to run 30 kilometers
Yeah.
because I feel like I need it. And if I don't have it, what will I be doing?
Hmm.
And that's kind of mentality is, I think, quite linked in again with people who are always pushing themselves and can get injured, maybe don't give themselves as much nutrition as they need. So again, it was just playing on my mind because we discussed it last week. So I thought I'd sort of, just have a bit of a throwback to that.
So it's so funny. I just remembered something. And it's
Yeah.
funny, it's like, I think that you bring up a good thing, how we can be super attached to one thing, like the
Yeah.
running, particularly. And why I think we talked last week about how helpful it is to have like a cross training option you can do at home.
Yeah.
So, like, if there does come something does come back with a stress fracture, if you do have something, you can
I
always go
can
to the bike
Zwift.
for a bit to Zwift.
Yeah.
So I did that trail run on Sunday, and it's like a
Yeah.
pretty rocky trail. It's not super, it's like little ups and downs and around, rounds. And I ran, and it's great. And like literally as I finish to leave the park, it goes to like a paved path. And about 20 feet before the end, I like roll my ankle on the paved path.
Shucks.
I was doing
After
something
all of
weird. I
that
was like,
trail.
"Ooh," I was like, feeling. I was like, it was such a stupid thing. I was like, I wonder if I'm like not really like driving with my knees. Something weird. Like, it was like, because it's like, I was like, am I really running? Like, and I started to like, well, driving my knees. I think it was stupid. And then I like did this weird step and like rolled my left ankle pretty hard. And it hurt like hell. So that's why I didn't run on Monday to first, one of the
Oh,
first
I
things.
see. Yeah. Because of the
But
ankle.
actually, it's interesting. That's why I went and did yoga. And just a little bit of yoga has sort of helped my mobility. And like I realized I ran today and no issues with the foot. So it's anyway, just sort of funny how
So
having even like something like when I think about things like that, like I know that like if running gets taken right now, I know I can also,
you
that
can do
I can
yoga.
do
There's other
yoga,
things.
right? And I know also like I've been doing my strength
You
training,
can
like
cycle.
doing that. I know I can cycle. So it is kind of good to know there are
Good to
some of
know.
these
Yeah, it's
options.
true.
So
So I think we had a nice email from a listener, and we
we
also had
did.
a listener's question because one of the topics that, I mean, I've actually been seeing a few podcasts talking about this. I don't
Mhm.
know if you know who I think it's Jake Dearden, not Jack Dearden. He's a
Okay.
sort of high rocks pro, and
Okay.
he's got a really good podcast, and he has really good athletes on. And he had, do you know the middle distance runner? I think he is Andy Butchart. He's
Okay.
Scottish.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a really good runner, and Alfie Manthorpe, who debuted his
Yes, I've heard that guy.
British. So he had them both on, and then they were talking about Dearden. I think he's tried to run a sub 220, but I think got 223. I
Okay.
think he actually maybe trained a little bit with Lucy Charles Barkley, and her husband I think is one of her coaches, I think his name is. And I've heard them talking about him trying to go under sub 220. And I think he's had a lot of, I don't go as far as saying hate, but a lot of criticism, this high rocks boy, who does he think he is, kind of thing. But he got 223, which I think is pretty good
Amazing.
for one of those
Damn
hybrid
good.
athletes. But he's a really cool guy. I like, at first, I was a bit like, oh, high rocks, here we go. But and he's like Red Bull, this and that, everything. But he's actually really cool. He has got a good interviewing style. I've enjoyed listening to him. But they were then talking, the three of them, because they trained together in Manchester, what it might take for him to get a certain 10K time. And then they were actually saying, well, maybe because he weighs 85 kilograms, what do they think he could do if he weighed less? So the topic of weight is where I'm getting to come into it. And actually,
I know. And like, look,
one of
like,
my,
let's just
yeah,
call it to people. Like, if this is a topic that's gonna like
triggering.
it's a trigger alert. Like, I mean, we're not, I mean, you are a doctor, but you're not operating as a doctor right now. We're not serving as doctors. Like, we know this is a tough topic. And it's a
Yeah,
complicated one, and we want to talk about it because it's like relevant to us. But just
I
know
think
if
it
this is
is.
gonna, if this is gonna
And
really
it's
affect you, then like, maybe take a
maybe fast
pause.
forward.
Yeah,
I mean, and we're just sharing some of our thoughts because we
yeah.
haven't even discussed it in great detail. But it was very interesting. One of my friends with the stress fracture and I were talking, and one of the people that she's been coached with before has said offline, guys, I don't put this on social media, but the truth is when you're leaner, you run faster. So there has always been that narrative. It's very unhealthy narrative, but
Mm-hmm.
it is true for some people that if they could lose some weight. If they're bigger, they
Yeah.
probably would run faster. So I'm going to use my partner Dale, who gets pulled into every podcast. Poor guy. He is 6 foot something. He's about 85 kgs. Okay, he is 50, and he's got a bit maybe more in the middle than he'd like. But he's running well, and he's running almost better than he ever did in his 30s. You know, he's got like a 3:20. Oh gosh, I don't know, 3:26 or something, which is the fastest he's run for a while, marathon time. But the truth is, probably if he got down to 80 and he did it in a healthy way, you'd probably see him running faster, or maybe even 78. He'd probably be quite lean at that. But so one of the listeners' questions was about Ozempic. What do we know
Yes.
about what's our thoughts and take? And we really aren't experts on this, on Ozempic and running. And actually, by chance, another podcast I really recommend people listen to is Callum Goddard's Emotional Intelligence. He had a doctor on last week
Mm-hmm.
who
Cool.
spoke a bit about Ozempic. So I heard a little bit about what she had to say, and she's a runner herself, a very good runner. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm happy to share what I've heard, and then see what your take is on this, because it seems that these drugs are more and more widely used. Not everybody's been prescribed them in a safe way. Apparently, you can get them on the black market. You live in the States where maybe it's even more prolifically used than here. I don't know. So interested to get your take on it.
Yes. To a couple of thoughts. I think the weight one's an interesting one, and I've done that. Like a couple of months ago, I was definitely at some of my heaviest but strongest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you remember me 2 years ago for at the end of 75 hard then, and I was like lean and mean, but I lost a lot of
Yeah.
muscle in that period as
Yeah. So
well.
you lose power.
So I lose power. And I think I was at risk of maybe more stress fractures if ever I was.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tough one because, and I think there's different categories as well, because it's like
Yeah.
I'm also someone who at times carried a bit more body fat, right?
Sure.
And it's like I think there is an argument if you could safely and like not crash, so to speak, but like with adjustments, be able to, and you end up losing some of that body fat whilst retaining your lean body mass and your power, and also doing it in a way that you're not having big sort of like deficits, and like you are fueling the runs and fueling the like post the long runs. Then I think it's like it's a bit of a science equation, right? Which is like in that one there, if that fat is not creating power, then it is slowing you down, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a point where it's like, now if you take that too far, and I think for a lot of the elite in our sport, when you're trying to shave little like like it's the sort of like what the cyclists used to do, where they were like trying to be so skinny because that's a power to was very much considered a power to weight ratio. I think at the extreme there it does break down, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
then
but
you
then you
actually,
see the cyclists have had absolutely awful bone density,
I know.
young men with like
And
bones of
they're
a
and they and they
99-year-old
and they
woman.
crash a lot and they break their bones a lot. And then you
Exactly.
see these exact things like Victor Campenaerts, who's on Vismalista bike, and there was a couple of others where they just decided that like it didn't make sense. They were trying to be too lean and mean, and instead they
Yeah.
embraced like basically 10 kilos higher, and
Yeah.
they got to that 10 kilos but strong, and then they
Yeah.
suddenly were able to attack different classic races like
Yeah.
they couldn't before, because it was like it's like each person almost has like a set point, like that is like the right, and it's going to be different. Some people are just naturally like lean and skinny and whatever, like they're just like light even if they might not be short. But I do think there is something there. And then so that's my thoughts on weight. Where do you want to go from there? I'm happy to give some thoughts
Well, I
on
was
then
just going to also
Ozempic,
comment
but
that, just that for women, if your body fat gets too low, then your period stops, and that's a very bad sign.
yes.
So, just to say, yes, if you do see people who get faster when they lose weight, but every expert that I've heard speaking will say it's probably not advisable to be trying to lose weight if you're also trying to push your performance in running.
Yes, exactly.
So I think, and every bit of advice I read is, if you're wanting to improve your maybe your body composition, as you say, you might want to do it with a new sports nutritionist advice on
Yeah,
how you do that.
exactly.
So should I share what I heard about from the Ozempic point of view? Because I thought it was quite interesting.
I think you should go for it.
Yeah. Essentially what I've been reading and what I've there, we have to also remember, as you said, there's also different categories of people. There are some people who are very, very unhealthy in this sort of where they're at with their weight, who are not even really at the recreational runner stage, and they may really need Ozempic for many medical reasons, and they may be also advised to get moving and get active and running. And that's like a slightly different story
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
somebody who's wants to lose 5 kilograms to run faster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just sort of bringing that into
Yeah.
perspective. So, because there may be people listening who are in a position that for health reasons, they may need to lose a certain amount of weight for diabetes risks and heart control,
Yeah.
heart risks, and maybe they do need the Ozempic and they are also trying to be active. So I'm slightly more talking about people like us, average runners, some a bit
Mm-hmm.
middle-aged, some, and who are also feeling that they'd like to, because a lot of people get into running because they want to lose weight, and then it doesn't always happen that way because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much fuel involved in running well, right? So what this doctor was saying and what I've read is that Ozempic, because it curbs your appetite, what will happen is that you will often not be well enough fueled for your runs.
100% believe that.
You lose not. It's not only that, because originally I thought, well, it's a problem because you probably lose weight quite fast and you lose muscle mass, etc. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because you're not getting the cues to eat, it's going to be quite hard to fuel. So you might do, fasted training is no longer really considered a great
Yeah.
idea. Taking a gel during a run is going to be quite difficult to do. So if you're really like trying to perform well, and you're on Ozempic, you're going to be having to force yourself to eat to fuel your exercise, is one of the things she was saying. I think that I picked up, and I could be wrong, that it also slows a bit of the transition time of fuel through your body. So if you're taking on gels, you're taking on nutrition, it kind of, the impact of it takes longer to sort of come through. So what I'm getting at is, let's take someone like my partner, Dale. Let's say he decides he's somehow going to get someone to prescribe him Ozempic because he just doesn't want to stop eating Percy pigs on his own accord. He wants, to take something that will
That's not
just make
passive
him stop
aggressive at all.
eating
We all
Percy
love
pigs.
we uplift all Percy pigs and
Yeah,
all
he loves a
consumption of
Percy
Percy
pig.
pigs. Wish we could have them in the US. Glad we don't actually.
Yeah. Next time you come over, I'll make you a care packet of
Oh my gosh.
different
I've
Percy pig
I've taken a whole
varieties.
suitcase back of Percy pigs. I've taken like
Have you?
12 packets of Percy pigs back to gift to people in
I
the
never
past.
even knew what they were until I moved here. I'd never
Oh,
heard of this bloody
magical.
Percy pig.
Yes.
And they get something called, I've seen now called a reversey Percy. It's like the
I've seen the
pink star in a
reversey
different
Percy.
pattern, and then the fizzy pigtails. Anyway, I loves a reversey Percy. So rather than having to just tell himself to stop eating these things, maybe he can take his Ozempic, lose some weight, and then he's going to run like 310, is what his thinking is. But it is a little bit more complicated because he's not really overweight, and it feels like maybe you should lose weight another way if you want to lose weight. But I just think I think that these drugs are being used a lot more than we realize from what I pick up. Because what this doctor shared, which I didn't know, is that a lot of people are getting it on the black market, kind of like drug dealers with this stuff. And they're taking it. And so, I mean, I didn't really realize this, but the kind of skinny trend is back, which is obviously a bit disappointing because we grew up in that era.
You did.
Where, you must look like a heroin addict if you can.
Yeah.
So it's a bit disappointing that it's back, but I'd be curious to see how this story about use of Ozempic and running, what more comes up, because I think we're kind of in early days if more and more people are starting to use it.
Yeah. Okay. So here are the thoughts. Firstly, I think we're very early on. We do not really know what the impacts of Ozempic and running and heavy training long term. So that's kind of like, buyer beware on that one, caveat emptor, we just don't really know as far as I can see. So again, we're not doctors, we're not research experts on podcast, in terms of our podcasting here on running in the context of running physiology, etc. But so I remember when I got into running, I was pretty overweight. And you get into running, you start to be more active and you do it more. And I lost a bunch of weight because you ran. And I wasn't, let's be clear, I was probably in some sort of energy deficit of some form in that thing. I wasn't trying to be. It was just, but it sort of happened and it was natural. I was getting stronger. I was losing fat. I was probably building some muscle. I wasn't consciously not fueling in those kind of things. So The argument as well in general is that like if you get fitter and do more work and like stoke the aerobic engine and this sort of the cardiovascular engine, like invariably like the engine gets better and you will like the composition will change. So that's like one
Mm.
argument for like don't even go into like any kind of any deficit. Right. But I think so the thing about something like Ozempic so I know a bunch of people who've taken Ozempic, right? And guys and
Is
girls.
it an
Well,
injection or is it
yes, I
tablets?
think it's an
Injection,
injection.
I
It
think.
is an
Yeah,
injection,
that's
but
what I
they're
heard.
now
Yeah.
finding different things like tablets,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So the big thing here is that it kills your hunger. Like you just don't want to eat. So like it's fascinating to people who like would like you're seeing them getting lunch and they'll leave in half a cheeseburger and a bunch of like half their fries, right? As you're having like a lunch meeting, right? It's like
Mm.
super, and you're like, dude, you would never have like not polished that off. And I'm like, for me, it's like I know I would like generally polish off the the meal kind of thing. So it has some, the other piece I know at least one person I know who like got put on it by their doctor, right? Because they're not
Okay.
super active and they were holding a bit more and they wanted to be healthy. They also did a bunch of fasting around for like a religious holiday. And they had a few like moments where they had like almost passed out, like had real kind of like not quite seizure, but like had some moments which had some
Really?
sort of like low blood sugar, and these are certain these things can happen. It can sort of disrupt, it can affect what you were. So when I think about something like that, and then things like runners, right? It's like
Yes.
that makes me definitely wonder and be sort of skeptical and concerned about like I think your point about like not fueling the runs I think is a real problem. So that's a real problem. Which I mean I could see you having these like low blood sugars doing a run. You're trying to do like a workout and now you just don't have the fuel on board, and now like you could if you had this like a like suddenly passed out for a second, but you're like on the trail or you're in the middle of a run, like that could not be pretty. And then
Yeah.
well, and then
And
the
then
thing I
actually lots of people get appetite suppression from a run. I don't know if you get that, but if I run a lot, I really struggle to eat. Apparently it's more common in women. So
yeah.
imagine you've already got a suppressed, you haven't really fueled, your appetite is down, then you've done a run, and now your appetite's down even further. You might not eat all day. I mean, it's a
Oh, that
recipe
would
for
be terrible because
disaster.
again, that was the thing. So
Yeah.
now you got to fuel, like you got to recover from your run in order to have the
Mm,
adaptation in order to run
mm,
the next day. Like, and remember, that's the whole thing. We're trying to do is train as hard and as sensible to get the adaptation. If we train too much, we won't adapt and the body will reject,
yeah.
like it's too much for the body. And if we don't fuel it, the body won't adapt and it'll just go into like, some catabolic state and eat itself. Right. And so I think there's a real risk on that one. Then I think there's also a risk of like, there's a lot of the science, the research about like the after a hard race, like an ultra, your base resting metabolism might be double its normal level for a week. For a week. And so they almost say like after 100 miles, you should
Yeah. Yeah.
eat like you eat on your long run day every day
Yeah.
for 7 days, even when you're not running a step, because you just run 100 miler because your body is like so ramped up from it. And so again, I worry like if you have something like Ozempic, I do not think I suspect you're not going to like get the recovery you need. Now, one other thing which is kind of interesting, the thing I have heard just in people, non-athletes taking Ozempic is Ozempic, the real risk is you lose a ton of your body mass, of your lean muscle. And so I've heard that, like, the sort of general thing is sort of a pound, so a gram of protein per pound of body mass is like a proxy, a pound of weight, right? How much
Yeah.
you
Or
weigh.
just are converted. So they always say sort of like up to about two, maybe even 2.2
2.2 per
per
kilogram.
kilogram.
Right. And so I have heard that when you're doing Ozempic, that you need to eat that much protein per day. And I've heard like, it's like Dave Asprey, who's a bit of a contentious, like sort of
Yes.
biohacking sort of individual. I was like a Dave Asprey wannabe, like I sort of like fanboy at
Of
one
course you
point.
were.
Of course I
Was
was,
that in your finance bro
God.
days? No, I'm just joking.
Well, it wasn't really fun. It's when I went into like CrossFit and then keto and bulletproof
Okay.
coffee and all that bullshit.
You were
It's like,
putting butter in your coffee, were you?
oh,
Okay.
for sure.
Good for you.
Of course I was fucking putting butter.
Grass-fed butter, I hope it was.
To always
Don't mess
grass fed.
around.
Don't
Don't
fuck
mess
around.
around, yeah.
Yeah, on the MCT oil. Oh my god.
Yes,
Anyway,
there you go.
but
That's it.
the thing is, I follow his logic. There is like, and he would say like, you need to force feed yourself that protein shake like
Mm.
a fucking a foie gras duck. with as much conviction that you take your injection every day. As religiously as you take your injection, you need to be hitting that protein. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I think we're going to start to see more. That's where we're going to
Yeah.
see some of these bad outcomes.
Well,
So
maybe
when I
listeners who have taken it can let us know their
Yes, if you
experience
have,
if they
let us
can.
know. But
We'll
then,
keep
so
it
the thing I want
anonymous.
to land there is like you're already going to need to be force feeding yourself protein, right? And then you're saying like if you're doing this training, you need the carbs, right? Like
Yeah,
and we're not
you
saying like
do.
overeating carb, but like so I think it sounds high risk, but if
Yeah.
someone's doing it medically with their doctor for other reasons, then they should do it. But then I like your point, like I think having the nutritionist as well as the doctor, like it does not seem like something to wing it, and particularly the black market. And side note, I will say, I do know some people. I was like, hey, yeah. I also saw someone. I was like, hey, yeah, you're looking great. You've been like more consistent in the gym lately, and they were like, nah. Just taking the a little bit of the GLP-1, and I was like, "Oh, really?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, my so and so, my partner, who is overweight, is like, I steal some of his, right?" And I was like, so it's like micro dosing GLP-1 from their, So I think this is very common. I think this is what's
Yeah,
happening,
I
right?
do
So,
think I feel I don't want to point fingers, but I feel like it's maybe more common in the States now, but it's going to
oh,
come here.
definitely. But
I mean,
let's
it
be
probably
clear,
is here
it's
already.
most people I know, it's men who are on it. Not, I don't know as many.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
Okay,
sure like
interesting.
they're yeah, but anyway, that was a cool
Okay,
discussion.
good. Yes, so let's keep our radar on what's going on in that world. For me, it is a triggering discussion. I think, oh, but I think it's important. And this whole is that world of Ozempic it's actually a little bit frightening, but I can also see why it's important. So, anything else?
Yeah, I got one other thing, and it's actually we didn't talk about this. It came up in my mind. I had a little listener note from a good colleague of mine who listened to our episode, our London episode, our episode about post London, where we talked
Oh
about
yes,
the run I did,
my disaster. Oh,
and
your London pub crawl run.
yeah, sort of, yeah, like revisiting all the old. And
Revisiting,
it
yeah, yeah.
turns out this colleague and I were living in the same part of Lancaster Gate
Okay, cool.
in that period before we knew each other. We only got to know each other in recent years. So we were in our own little orbits. And and so I'd sent him the Strava link of my run, which I had, if you recall, I took pictures of everything and they're
Yes,
all on the
lots of great
Strava.
pictures.
And so I think this sort of ties into a bit of global running day and sort of what does it mean to run. But in that, it's like he's like, oh, I was going to ask you if if you went to Halepi, and then Halepi was a picture of Halepi. He's like, then I saw a picture of Halepi, which is the Greek restaurant, and like he had some stories about that. And it's just sort of when I think like there's so much that's bad about social media, right? In
Mm,
general, and even Strava can be, you can compare yourself to others, you can see what everyone else is doing and want to do more, all these things. But one of the things I do love is if you can sometimes sort of using it and sharing these moments. Like running is cool and fun, and like the fact that I was able to capture that moment. I love going back and looking at pictures of that moment. Someone else I know got to look at the pictures of my run and reminisce about their time in London 15 years ago. And it was just like it's kind of cool, like how running can sort of enable that. And
yeah,
maybe I'm saying like take more pictures on your runs, post pictures to
share
your
them.
Stravas, and sort of like, that's how I like, go run with a friend, and be social with it. But that's like I love that part. I love when I think about scrolling Strava. I much prefer ones where I see some pictures or something than
Yeah,
just
I
like
agree. I think I'm going to start doing
morning
that.
run, and then it's just like I have no idea what this
But
run
I don't
was
run with
for.
my phone, but I think I'm going to start doing a little bit more on that front. But
Yeah.
maybe for closing, because I'm going
Yes.
to announce when we close because I'm not feeling well and I need to go and get my pajamas on.
Yes, you
But
do.
I have a good story
Cool.
linked to running and about a bit of the good in the world that I'll share for us to close.
Good.
There's a guy on social media called Ginger with a GoPro. His name is
Okay.
Chad Nathan, and he is a South African.
Okay.
Got slightly ginger hair, and he's got a GoPro, and he does loads of running. I think he's also a photographer, and maybe that's how he makes his living. But he's got quite a good social media account, so it's quite worth following him. He's a young guy, sort of really enthusiastic about life, but he has loads of events and he travels all over the world. And anyway, he shared a story of him running the other day, where Cape Town. I don't know if you've been there, but it's also
Mhm.
called the Cape of Good Storms for good reason. The
Mm,
weather is great most of the time, but when there's a storm, there's a storm. There's a reason there's shipwrecks, and sailors in the back in the day used to have their ships strewn against the rocks because the seas can be enormous. So there was one of
mm.
these very big Cape storms, terrible weather, people losing their homes, that sort of thing. And
Oh,
there's a
shit.
promenade along the seafront,
Mhm.
along the beachfront in part of Cape Town called sort of Sea Point, Bantry Bay area. And that's where this guy was running. And when he was on this run and he's sort of battering, you can see the waves are crashing over the wall. I know the area very well. I mean, it's like crazy to even be out in that weather. But he's on his run, this guy, Ginger, with a GoPro. The waves are crashing over. You can see the trees are sort of bending in the background. But he comes across a guy in a wheelchair who is trying to motor himself, and he feels in himself that he can't just like run past this guy. Like there's only two of them out in this weather, him and then this chap in the wheelchair. So he basically asks the guy like where you're going. He needs to get to that bus stop, which is like however many kilometers away. So he decides to push him. And
Sweet.
he said it was like the hardest few kilometers he's ever run in his life, sort of in this gale, pushing this guy, getting him to the bus because the guy was going to a medical appointment. And he kind of got the story out of him. And he's a chap who's, I think, struggled with being unhoused for a long time, but he partly
Mhm.
also because he was knocked down by a car
Mm.
when he was in Sea Point in Cape Town, because he was sort of seen as unhoused. He's not worthy of being stopped for, so people just let the driver go on. He hasn't had any help. He's lost a
Mm.
limb. Basically, a really awful story. And this
This
poor
is
man is out
horrendous.
there and he's trying to get it together. He doesn't have anywhere to stay. So basically, Chad posts the story and says, listen, guys, if anyone wants to give a bit of money, Sydney is his name. I'm going to try and see what I can do to help him. I think at this stage, he's raised over 500,000 Rand. I mean, I think he may have even
Wow.
he's been on the radio. The guy's been given a brand new wheelchair. Like everybody is coming together to help this one guy who's been living kind of unnoticed, uncared for,
Mm.
just trying to get by. So sometimes I think, the world is such a hectic place. Social media, I hate it, even though I doom scroll it myself. But people are good.
People are
There's
good.
good people out there. And so, I just thought I'd give a shout out to Ginger with a GoPro, Chad Nathan, and everybody's been stepping in, and all over the country and all over the world, people stepping in to help this guy have a better quality of life. So I thought I'd share that as our sort of global running day and a story.
I love that. And it reminds me because, and this might be good to get this, I'll do this as my final close. I just love that story and how they come together. And it sort of ties into a lot of things here is that, so I think maybe by the next time we record, I don't know, maybe we'll tee up. But my sister in a week on Saturday is doing a marathon long, walk. Like, or,
Okay.
in the Brecon Beacons, 26 miles. She's doing it for Dementia UK and the Alzheimer's group. Society, I should say. And so, it's a memory of my dad who had dementia.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's seeing people do things and come together with running. And it's
Yeah.
like, you shared a lot about that in with London Marathon, like a few weeks ago. But like, I love this story, how how one person here and then the community coming together. And anyway, I'm wishing my sister, she's training hard right now. My sister's not a runner and not, she likes to try to get outside, but is like busy mom, 2 kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she's been getting after it with these longer runs in the
Great.
hill, longer walks, I should say, in the hills, and going to take on this monster challenge for her. So I'm so proud of her. Gotta say that.
Okay. Well, good luck, you sister. We
Go
haven't
you,
got
sister.
what's
Go
your
Nia.
sister's name? Yeah.
Nia.
There we go.
Nia.
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 Okay.
All
Great.
right.
Hugh, I have to go and put my pajamas on and go to bed.
Let's go do this.
I've
You go do
outdone
that.
myself,
We've had.
and I'll see you
I
next
need to go
week.
get excited about Go Spurs Go.
Yes. Good luck for
Uh,
your what
my
team?
my team, my
NBA.
basketball team, NBA team. So, and then we'll chat next week. Okay.
See you then.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.